I'm in my 40s and I've been studying Japanese for just over a year. And honestly, I wasted a lot of time. I've stumbled through different methods, listened to countless experts, and made mistakes I regret. If I could go back to day one, this is the blueprint I'd give myself. In saying that, I'm not a guru and I do not have a PhD in linguistics. All of this stems from my experience and learning and what has worked for me so far, even though I loosely base it on scientific research. It might or might not do the same for you. That said, I'll speak with confidence about what has worked for me, but I've changed my mind before and I expect to again. This is my best approach as of today. To move forward, we need to know why this step should work. Enter Dr. Stephen Krashen and his 5 hypotheses on language learning. Number 1. Acquisition learning hypothesis. There are 2 ways to develop language ability. Acquisition, that's subconscious like a child learning to speak, and learning, that's conscious studying rules and grammar. Number 2. Monitor hypothesis. Your brain has an editor that corrects errors, but relying on it too much kills fluency. Number 3. Natural order hypothesis. You acquire grammar in predictable order, regardless of how it's taught. Number 4. Comprehensible input hypothesis. You acquire language when you understand messages. The sweet spot is I+1, just slightly beyond your current level. Number 5. Effective filter hypothesis. Anxiety, stress, and lack of confidence block language acquisition. Now, immersion-based methods like Ajat, Mia, and Refold took Krashen's ideas and popularized them in Japanese learning community. But important note here, these are hypotheses, not proven theories. That doesn't mean they don't work, it just means that we don't have enough research to classify them as fact. The second key idea is skill acquisition theory. It suggests that adults begin with explicit learning, like studying the rules, and with enough practice, shift to implicit knowledge, automatic use. In other words, you need both active study, so for example, learning vocab and grammar, and practice, for example, immersion. Some research suggests the best balance is 1 to 5, so for every 1 hour of study, do 5 hours of practice. So, if I were starting over, here's what I'd do. These are my 4 pillars of language acquisition. Number 1, stay motivated and happy. If you burn out, you won't make progress. Number 2, active study. Learn kana, kanji, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, and pitch accent. Number 3, practice. Immerse in Japanese, reading, listening at I+1 level. Number 4, balance study and immersion. Aim for 1 part study to 5 parts immersion. But there is an obvious problem, of course. How do you immerse at I+1, just above your level, when you know literally nothing in the beginning? Hold that thought. I'll get back to it. I've mentioned burnout and demotivation in my progress update videos, and I can confirm from experience that Dr. Krashen's filter hypothesis is more relevant than it might seem. To stay motivated in language learning, you need to be happy and confident in life outside of it. While that's beyond the scope of this video, we can set up systems to maintain consistency without relying on motivation too much. It's better to study a little every day than to cram once a week. After a month or 2, this builds a routine that becomes automatic, removing the need to force yourself to immerse. I personally started with just 5 minutes a day and gradually worked up from there. If it feels too easy, that's the point. Consistency is more important than speed early on. Over a month, you can build it up to an hour of study per day, where progress becomes more noticeable. Your brain absorbs new information best in the morning after a good sleep and struggles most after a stressful day. So my routine right now is at midday, I do 30 minutes of active study. Evening, immersion after dinner, and before bed, reviewing the new words mined from immersion. I rarely hit the ideal 2.5 hour immersion target for a 1 to 5 ratio, But I maintain consistency closer to 1:2 ratio of active study to immersion, which matters more than the raw time, doing it on a daily basis. Now, think about where you can fit language learning into your weekdays and weekends. Pause the video, write it down, and make room for at least an hour a day, or more if your schedule allows. If you don't plan your study, life will plan around it instead. So why aim for at least an hour a day? Well, because progress fuels motivation. Without enough visible progress, it's easy to lose momentum. Once you have your schedule set up, it's time to move on to the active studies. Start by learning hiragana and katakana. Romaji won't cut it. Takim's Japanese guide is a great resource. Spend no more than a week on both. Hiragana will stick quickly and katakana will come with practice. All the links are in the description below. For kanji, I originally used Hi6 RTK, remembering the kanji, to learn over 2,300 kanji in isolation, but I struggled with recognition and context. Instead, I would simply get acquainted with Hi6 RTK method and use the deck in the description to learn the first 450 kanji, then transition to vocabulary-based learning through immersion. Talking of, vocabulary is king. The best pre-made Anki deck I've tried is Kaishi 1.5K, downloaded from the link in the description below. Pitch accent matters. Yes, you can be understood without it, but just like stress accent in English, getting it wrong makes comprehension harder. Check out this pitch accent guide in the description below for a solid start. Finally, grammar. Follow Takim's grammar guide, reading 1 chapter per day. Don't overanalyze it. Percussion's monitor hypothesis and natural order hypothesis. Grammar isn't something you drill, it's something you absorb over time. This took me 1.5 to 2 months, reading for about 5 to 20 minutes a day. The goal isn't mastery here, just familiarity. We will acquire the rest from learning vocabulary, immersion, and by going back periodically to grammar guide, dictionaries, to look things up. So here's my recommendation for active study timeline. Week 1, hiragana and katakana. Next 1.5 months, 10 new kanji per day, 450 total kanji. Next 5 months, 10 new vocab cards per day from Kaishi 1.5K Anki deck, grammar from Takim's guide, pitch accent learning, shadowing Anki sentences. After 6 to 8 months, you'll have built a strong foundation and made it through the hardest part. Now, it's time for the most productive and enjoyable study method: sentence mining and immersion. Immersion isn't just an extra step in a language learning, it is essential. It's not something you add later, it should start from day 1. At first, it feels overwhelming. That's normal. The key is to start with the easiest content possible and gradually increase difficulty as you build vocabulary and grammar. But what's the point in immersing if I don't understand anything, you ask? Well, think of how babies learn, surrounded by language long before they start speaking. Our brains absorb and process input naturally, even when we don't realize it. So combined with active studying, you'll slowly bridge the gap to I+1, as Dr. Krashen's comprehensible input hypothesis suggests. So, how do we immerse? Well, thankfully, YouTube and podcasts provide everything you need. Some advocate immersing only in native level content from day 1. I do get the logic, but I found it helpful to start with native-made content for learners. So I would suggest start with Easy Japanese Conversation Lessons by NHK World Japan. That's 10-minute bite-sized episodes, each building on a previous one, with vocabulary, grammar, and cultural insights in English. There are only 48 episodes, and this is perfect for the building your habit stage of learning. Graduating from that, I'd suggest a YouTube channel, Japarot, Let's Learn Japanese. If that's too easy, move on to my favorite YouTuber, Speak Japanese Naturally. Slow, natural speech aimed at learners, making it a great stepping stone before native content. And a slightly more challenging but still approachable Yuyu no Nihongo podcast. This progression should carry you through your first 6 to 8 months, gradually increasing difficulty. And yes, I still watch Speak Japanese Naturally, I just love it. But what if YouTube and podcast aren't your thing? I hear ya. Let's talk anime. As a beginner, choose anime with simple everyday language. Slice of life and drama work best here. A commonly recommended option is Shirokuma Cafe, which I have tried and decided I'd rather spend my time watching paint dry. On a positive note, the language is very simple. Instead, I'd recommend Karakai Jouzu no Takagi-san, or Non Biyori, or Chibi Maruko-chan, or Sazae-san. Benefits of long-standing shows are similar vocabulary being used and getting used to characters and voice actors for comprehension. Chibi Maruko-chan and Sazae-san are institutions in Japan, with thousands of episodes, familiar vocabulary, and insights into Japanese culture. Just ensure your source has Japanese subtitles. Doraemon is another classic, but its sci-fi elements bring in some, let's say, tricky vocab. It is also the one aimed more at younger audiences. Ultimately though, pick something you enjoy. If you're excited to watch, immersion becomes effortless. But picking random anime could be harder for comprehension, so try this. First, watch an episode in English only. Then, rewatch it immediately in Japanese. Do this for a while and do transition to Japanese only with subtitles later on. So, how to immerse with audio content? Use audio podcasts for background or passive listening while walking, running, driving, etc. How to immerse with video content? First, no English subtitles. If you feel lost, switch to a more visually driven show or try the English first, Japanese second method I've described just now. Second, use Japanese subtitles. Even if you can't read everything, this helps with reading immersion. Third, choose between active and passive watching. Active is you pause to read subtitles and look up words. This is really best for when you are starting to sentence mine. Should be done in small focus sessions to prevent burnout. And passive, let the episode just play naturally, only stopping occasionally to look things up. But what about reading, you ask? There are two schools of thought on this. First one says read more and fluency will come. Second one says, yeah, but build a base first. That's vocabulary, pronunciation, and pitch accent, to avoid reinforcing bad habits. Because you see, you subvocalize when reading. Mispronouncing words early on can create a long-term issue. Personally, I learned English through reading, but my accent stuck because I didn't focus on pronunciation early on. So in the first 6 to 8 months, you'll get reading practice from Anki and subtitles, and you should start reading when you feel confident in your pronunciation. But if you really want to start early, try Tadoku. That's a free graded readers, starting from level 0. Once you're past level 0 on Tadoku, try Yotsuba to manga. It's a slice of life, funny, sweet, and simply adorable manga. Language is simple and has furigana. I've finished all of the volumes currently out and can't wait for the next volume to be released. It's that good. To sum everything up, first 6 to 8 months blueprint is 1. Write down your learning plan. If you haven't done this already, do it now! 2. Build the habit first. Ease in, underperform, and gradually increase study time. 3. Learn kana and immersion with learner-friendly content. 4. Get comfortable not understanding everything. That's key. 5. Learn kanji while continuing immersion. 6. Progress to vocabulary, speech accent, and grammar. 7. Transition to more advanced immersion materials. 8. Always use Japanese subtitles. It's tough at first, but essential for training your brain. And 9. Start reading once you're confident in pronunciation. After the first 6 to 8 months, you should transition to easy native content. Start sentence mining and doing immersion. Keep doing Anki with shadowing for vocab. And start reading, gaming, and visual novels in Japanese. Rinse, repeat until fluent. Really, it's not that complicated. The hard part is consistency, and hopefully, ideas here would help you out with that. So does this sound like too much or too easy? Oh man, let me know in the comments. Do you want a step-by-step guide on setting up Anki for this blueprint? Watch this video next! Or the YouTube recommended one if it's not out yet. Until next time, Ganbaru zo! Soreja mata ne! Bye bye!